The morning light slowly spread across the mansion, shining through the tall windows and touching the golden decorations on the Christmas tree. The world outside was still covered in snow, sparkling like diamonds under the rising sun. Inside the grand house, there was a silence, but it was no longer the heavy silence Richard had always known. It was the quiet of peace, of something gentle, something new. Richard woke earlier than usual that morning. He dressed simply, not in his usual expensive suit, but in a soft sweater and trousers. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a businessman, a billionaire, or a public figure. He felt like a man who had something important to look forward to. He walked down the hallway and stopped outside the guest room. The door was slightly open, and through it, he saw Daniel still asleep. The boy was curled up in the large bed, holding the photograph close to his chest as if afraid it might disappear if he let go. The oversized gloves were on the nightstand, folded neatly, showing the boy's natural sense of care. Richard stood there quietly, his heart filling with emotions he could not easily explain. He had seen millions of dollars pass through his hands, but he had never seen anything so precious as this small boy, sleeping peacefully for the first time in what must have been a long time. When Daniel finally stirred awake, his eyes blinked against the sunlight. For a moment, he looked around in confusion, as though he had forgotten where he was. Then he saw the photograph still in his arms, saw the warm room, and remembered the man who had brought him here. His lips curved into the smallest of smiles, a smile of safety. "Good morning," Richard said gently, stepping inside. Daniel sat up quickly, almost embarrassed that he had slept so deeply. "Good morning, sir." Richard shook his head with a smile. "No need for sir. Just call me Richard." The boy hesitated, then whispered softly, "Good morning, Richard." It was the first time his name had sounded so meaningful. "Come," Richard said kindly. "Breakfast is ready." They walked to the dining hall, where the long table was filled with dishes: fresh bread, eggs, fruit, warm milk, and even sweet pastries. Daniel's eyes widened. He had never seen so much food prepared for just two people. "All this, for us?" he asked in wonder. "Yes," Richard said, pulling out a chair for him. "For us." At first, Daniel ate shyly, taking small bites as if afraid he might be wasting something too valuable. Richard encouraged him gently, making sure he felt comfortable. Slowly, the boy began to eat more freely, his face brightening with every bite. For Richard, it wasn't just breakfast, it was a reminder of what it meant to care for someone, to see them happy because of something you could give. After they finished, Richard leaned back and looked at Daniel seriously. He knew this conversation was important. "Daniel," he began softly, "last night, you told me you have no one left. No family, no one to take care of you. Is that true?" The boy lowered his head and nodded. His fingers tightened around the photograph. "Yes. It's just me now." Richard took a deep breath. His decision from the night before burned brighter in his heart now. He couldn't let Daniel's life continue like this. "What if," Richard said carefully, "you didn't have to be alone anymore? What if you stayed here, with me? Not just for one night, but for as long as you need. I have more than enough space, more than enough to give. But most of all, I want to give you something I think we both need: family." Daniel's eyes shot up, wide and uncertain. "Stay, with you?" "Yes," Richard said firmly, yet with kindness. "You deserve safety, education, warmth, and love. You deserve to be a child again. And I need something too. I need someone to remind me what really matters in life. I believe that person is you." For a long moment, Daniel didn't speak. His young mind was racing. Could it be true? Could someone like Richard, someone powerful and wealthy, truly want him, a boy with nothing? His heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to believe it, but he was afraid of being hurt again. Richard sensed his doubt and leaned closer. "Daniel," I know I can't replace your parents. No one ever can. But I can promise you this: you will never be alone again. Not as long as I am here. The boy's eyes filled with tears. His small hands trembled as he held the photograph tightly. Slowly, a single tear rolled down his cheek, and he whispered, I would like that. Richard felt a surge of warmth flood through him. He reached out and gently placed his hand on Daniel's shoulder. For the first time in years, he felt whole. The rest of the day was unlike any Christmas Richard had ever known. He and Daniel decorated gingerbread cookies together in the kitchen, laughing as Daniel accidentally spilled flour across the counter. They sat by the fire, sharing stories, Daniel telling him about the times with his parents, Richard telling him about his childhood struggles and how he had built his life. In the afternoon, they opened the presents under the tree. Most of them were meaningless gifts Richard had received from business partners, but he decided to give them to Daniel anyway. The boy's eyes lit up with every package, even if it was just a book or a scarf. For Daniel, it wasn't about the gifts themselves, it was about the joy of being remembered, of being included in something special again. At one point, Daniel looked at Richard and said softly, "This feels like Christmas again." Richard's throat tightened. Those simple words were the greatest gift he had ever received. As night returned, they sat once more by the fire. Daniel leaned against Richard's arm, his eyelids heavy from the long day. Richard placed a blanket around him and looked down at the boy who had walked into his life by chance or perhaps by fate. In that quiet moment, Richard realized something. All the money he had ever earned, all the buildings he had ever owned, all the fame he had ever gathered, it had never brought him true happiness. But this child, with nothing but a photograph and a broken heart, had given him something priceless: purpose. He whispered quietly, though Daniel was already drifting into sleep, "You saved me, Daniel. More than I saved you." The fire crackled softly, the snow continued to fall outside, and the mansion, once empty and cold, now felt like a home. For Richard, this Christmas had not just been a holiday, it had been a rebirth. And for Daniel, it was not just another night of loneliness, it was the beginning of a life where he was no longer forgotten. From that day on, they were no longer two lonely souls. They were family. And that was the greatest miracle of all.